Well, guys, what is it with this house? I truly was not expecting to be back in the Conjuring House rabbit hole this quickly, but apparently this story took one look at resolved and said absolutely not. Because every time it feels like we've reached the bottom, another tunnel opens up, another filing appears, and somehow the whole thing gets messier. So, buckle up, bitches, because you're in for a ride. The Conjuring House saga has officially reached the point where I need a whiteboard, a lawyer, and possibly a shot of tequila. Just when it looked like this fight was sitting squarely between Jason Hawes and the Haunted Homes LLC over the Conjuring House trademark, there now appears to be a separate opposition tied to that same trademark application involving New Line Productions too. Yep, the studio behind the Conjuring franchise. So, this is no longer just haunted house drama or ownership chaos. This is turning into a full-blown battle over who gets to control one of the most recognizable names in modern paranormal culture. You're listening to Deathly Curious Australia, paranormal, true crime, and the unexplained. I'm Monique, and this is a Deathly Curious Dispatch. Quick note before we dive in. This update is based on public reporting, court records and trademark filings available at the time of recording. And because this story keeps evolving, some details may still shift as more information comes out. So, let's rewind for a second. When I last covered this story, the trademark fight centered around Haunted Homes LLC filing for the name Conjuring House. And this wasn't just somebody trying to slap the name on a t-shirt and call it a day, although awkwardly merch is still part of the story, because while Haunted Homes LLC was trying to trademark Conjuring House, the name was already being used publicly in connection with fundraising merch and the broader campaign around who should control the property. So, straight away, this was never just a fight over a title. It was becoming a fight over who gets to commercially use the name, who gets to build a business around it, and who gets to shape the future of one of the most famous haunted houses in America. Then, Jason Hawes formally opposed that trademark filing. So where we last left it, this looked like a battle between Hawes and Haunted Homes LLC over who gets to commercially control the Conjuring House name, not just the merch, but across the kinds of services the property actually trades on: paranormal tours, experiences, overnight stays. But now, public trademark records show the matter moved into opposition proceedings in June, and New Line Productions appears to have stepped into the trademark fight too. And importantly, this doesn't just look like New Line quietly jumping onto Jason Hawes' complaint. It appears to be a separate opposition tied to the same Conjuring House trademark application, which makes the whole thing feel a lot bigger. Which is not exactly a tiny update, because Jason Hawes being involved makes sense. He's been directly tied to the broader fight over the property itself. But New Line entering the picture changes the scale of the story. Now, we're not just looking at haunted house turf war between paranormal personalities, competing and business interests. We may be looking at a fight involving the studio behind the Conjuring franchise itself, and then it's Haunted Homes LLC. Because that company isn't some random little entity that appeared out of nowhere. Haunted Homes LLC is the company used in Matt Rife and Elton Castay's purchase of Ed and Lorraine Warren's former house and occult museum in Connecticut. And public reporting on that sale described Castay as a manager of the LLC. So when Haunted Homes shows up in the Conjuring House trademark fight, it's not doing it in isolation. It's already tied to a very high-profile paranormal property purchase and to a broader business model built around haunted locations, haunted history, and the commercial value of famous paranormal sites. Which means this trademark battle isn't just some weird side quest happening off while the ownership fight plays out. It goes straight to the question of who gets to control one of the biggest paranormal brands in America. And once I started digging again, the ownership fight behind the scenes got even messier. Because while the trademark battle is one beast entirely, the property dispute itself is still doing absolute somersaults. For starters, the lawsuit trying to block Jason Hawes from buying the house was dismissed, but not before dragging some very interesting details into public view. According to reporting on the case, Hawes said the sale should have closed back in December, but instead got bogged down in lawsuits. And one of the more eyebrow-raising twists was that Hawes agreed not to rely on the earlier October sale documents after concerns were raised about whether they had actually been notarized properly, which is not the kind of phrase you want attached to a haunted house sale unless your goal is to make every lawyer in Rhode Island reach for a stress ball. And this is where Julia DeMay enters the story, a Massachusetts woman named in that disputed October paperwork, who Jacqueline Nunez later described in court filings as an employee of General Dynamics. According to reporting on the lawsuit, those October documents included a power of attorney that allegedly gave DeMay authority to do what was necessary to sell the house to Jason Hawes for $1.3 million. But Nunez later denied signing that power of attorney, which helps explain why those October documents became such a problem in the first place. Then, because his story refuses to behave like a normal property dispute, Hawes' side said there was also another deed signed in December, this time with a different notary. So at that point, we're no longer just dealing with a haunted house. We're dealing with a haunted paperwork trail. Then there's the mortgage, because of course there's a mortgage subplot, naturally. Just before the property was due to head to foreclosure auction, Needham Bank, the bank holding the mortgage on the Conjuring House, sold that mortgage note to Summit and Stone LLC, the company linked to Elton Castay and Matt Rife. So even though Elton wasn't the deeded owner of the Conjuring House itself, his side suddenly had a financial interest sitting right underneath the property. And according to reporting, Summit and Stone later tried to put Balefire LLC, Jacqueline Nunez's company, and the entity that owned the Conjuring House into receivership, citing around $1.2 million still owed on the mortgage. That motion was denied. Then Needham Bank reportedly filed its own lawsuit because the mortgage was allegedly discharged by mistake after the sale. So, if you're keeping score at home, we now have a sale fight, a deed fight, a mortgage fight, a receivership attempt, a trademark battle, and now New Line Productions entering the middle of it all like a studio-sized plot twist. And because the Conjuring House apparently believes in overachieving, there's also been reporting of a restraining order in the ownership dispute aimed at preventing unauthorized visits to the property. Now, I want to be careful with that part because I haven't got the full court filing sitting here in front of me, line by line, so I'm not going to overstate exactly who filed what against who. But the key point is this: the legal fight around access to the property is to still be very much alive. So where does that all leave us now? Well, what started as a fight between Jason Hawes and Haunted Homes LLC over the Conjuring House trademark now appears to have grown into something much bigger. Because if New Line Productions is now stepping into that opposition fight too, then this is no longer just a battle over a haunted location in Rhode Island. It's a battle over the commercial value of the Conjuring House name. Who gets to profit from it and who gets to build a brand around it? Who gets to control it? And when you zoom out, that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Jason Hawes was publicly trying to save the house. Haunted Homes was trying to trademark the name. And now New Line appears to be saying, hang on a second, we may have something to say about that too. So, the haunting may still be the reason people care about the Conjuring House, but the real chaos right now is in the paperwork. The house may be haunted, but the filings are absolutely possessed. So for now, the short version is this. The Conjuring House trademark fight has grown from a dispute between Jason Hawes and Haunted Homes LLC into something much bigger, with New Line Productions now appearing in a separate opposition tied to the same trademark application. And once you start pulling on that thread, this story stops being just about who owns a haunted house. It becomes a story about who controls the name, the brand, the future of the property, and who gets to turn one of the most famous haunted locations in America into a business. I'll keep digging, because every time I think I've reached the end of the Conjuring House rabbit hole, another filing pops up and drags me straight back in. This has been a Deathly Curious Dispatch. Stay curious, because some stories refuse to stay buried.
Shadows fall, I take flight. In the dark, on the light. Eyes locked, you